Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Rahmawati. Today I will presentation about learning and teaching. Hari ini saya akan mempresentasikan tentang learning and teaching. Adapun kontennya yang akan saya bawakan hari ini yaitu yang pertama, constructivism, yang kedua, higher order thinking, brain-based learning, metacognition, learning styles, motivation, cooperative learning. Teaching skills were divided into 7 major areas, contributing to the time on task and lesson flow, nonverbal teacher behavior, modeling, the organization of learning, 6 characteristics of learning situation that explain the main patterns of interactions, both formal and informal, can be found in a school context. Next. Okay, school exists to promote learning. Teachers are catalysts for learning. In promoting learning is no single blueprint for effectiveness. There are very many characteristics of effective teaching and effective learning. This chapter sets out some of the key principles from effective teaching and learning. Jadi sedikit di sini, sekolah ada untuk mempromosikan pembelajaran. Guru adalah konsilitator untuk pembelajaran. Dalam pembelajaran tidak ada cetak biru tunggal untuk keefektifan. Meskipun ada sangat banyak karakteristik pengajaran yang efektif dan pembelajaran yang efektif. Bab ini akan menjabarkan beberapa asas kunci untuk pengajaran dan pembelajaran yang efektif. Selanjutnya ada what is constructivism? Apa itu constructivism? Constructivism is a theory which regards learning as an effective process in which learners construct and internalize new concepts. Idea and knowledge is constructed rather than received. Learning moves away from the stimulus-response behaviorist paradigm to the ongoing development of conceptual structure in generative, creative, and often unique ways. Cognitive constructivism owes its genesis largely to Piaget and concerned with thinking and learning. Apa itu konstruktivisme? Konstruktivisme adalah teori yang menganggap pembelajaran sebagai proses aktif di mana peserta didik menginternalisasi konsep, ide, dan pengetahuan baru yang dibangun daripada yang diterima. Pembelajaran beralih dari paradigma stimulus-respon, behavior ke pengembangan berkelanjutan dari struktur konseptual dengan cara yang generatif, kreatif, dan seringkali unik. Konstruktivisme kognitif sebagian berasal dari Piaget dan berkaitan dengan pemikiran pembelajaran. Next, two types of constructivism. Number 1, cognitive constructivism and social cognitivism. Ada dua tipe konstruktivism. Yang pertama adalah cognitive constructivism. Cognitive constructivism owns its genesis largely to Piaget and is concerned with thinking and learning. Some key characteristics of cognitive constructivism are: jadi konstruktivism yang pertama adalah konstruktivism kognitif, sebagian berasal dari Piaget dan berkaitan dengan pemikiran dan pembelajaran. Beberapa karakteristik utama dari konstruktivism kognitif ini adalah: pertama, siswa membangun pengetahuan mereka sendiri tentang dunia. Belajar adalah mencari makna, mencari keseluruhan maupun bagian. Untuk mengajar dengan baik, kita harus memahami apa yang dipikirkan siswa. Kurikulum standar bertentangan dengan konstruktivisme. Number 2, ada social constructivism. Social constructivism owns much of its pedagogy to Vygotsky. Vygotsky suggests that teacher must provide the necessary scaffolding in developing and accelerating students' ability to think for themselves, control, to take responsibility for their own learning. Yang kedua adalah konstruktivisme sosial. Sebagian besar berasal dari sebagian besar berasal dari Vygotsky. Vygotsky menyarankan bahwa guru harus menyediakan perancah yang diperlukan dalam pengembangan dan mempercepat kemampuan siswa untuk berpikir sendiri, mengontrol dan bertanggung jawab atas pembelajaran mereka sendiri. Scaffolding. What is scaffolding? Scaffolding is a necessary part of building, but the important feature is that once the building is completed, the scaffolding is removed. In educational terms, this suggests that the teacher supports learning but also encourages the development of students as independent learners, capable of standing on their own and thinking for themselves. Apa itu perancah? Scaffolding. Perancah adalah bagian penting dari bangunan, tetapi fitur pentingnya adalah bahwa setelah bangunan selesai, perancah dilepas. Dalam istilah pendidikan, hal ini menunjukkan bahwa guru mendukung pembelajaran, tetapi juga mendorong perkembangan siswa sebagai pembelajar yang mandiri, mampu berdiri sendiri, dan berpikir untuk dirinya sendiri. Okay, next ada higher thinking order. Higher thinking order. A key feature of effective learning is a level-upment of higher order thinking. The highest form cognitive engagement is where learners plan and manage their own learning and exercise considerable autonomy, together with reflection on the learning and pre-experience and the instructions and the incorporation of new language into existing knowledge. Critical thinking involves finding information suitable for a specific purpose, analyzing and evaluating arguments, information and such, separating fact from opinion, exposing unstated assumptions, weighing evidence, evaluating the logic of the argument and the conclusions. This is stark contrast to many conventional models of learning, in which a lockstep approach is adopted, often with lower order skills preceding higher order skill. Pemikiran tingkat tinggi itu fitur kunci dari pengembangan yang efektif adalah mengembangkan pemikiran tingkat tinggi. Bentuk tertinggi dari keterlibatan kognitif adalah di mana peserta didik merencanakan dan mengelola pembelajaran mereka sendiri dan menjalankan otonomi yang cukup, bersama dengan refleksi pada pengalaman belajar dan gabungan dari pengetahuan baru dalam pengetahuan yang ada. Pemikiran kritis melibatkan penemuan informasi yang sesuai dengan tujuan tertentu, menganalisis dan mengevaluasi argumen, informasi dan sumber, memisahkan fakta dan opini, mengungkap asumsi yang tidak dinyatakan, menimbang bukti, mengevaluasi logika argumen dan kesimpulan. Hal ini sangat kontras dengan banyak model pembelajaran konvensional, di mana pendekatan lockstep adopsi seringkali dengan keterampilan tingkat rendah mendahului keterampilan tingkat tinggi. Next, brain-based learning. The brain, through sense organs, doesn't passively receive information. It deliberately goes fishing for it. The brain thrives on feedback. And learning relies on effective and rich feedback. Emotions are critical to patterning, and they drive our attention, memory, and learning. Meaning is more important than simply information. The brain is social. It's based through contact with other brains. Positive emotions play a vital role in effective learning. Pembelajaran berbasis otak. Otak melalui Otak melalui organ-organ indera tidak menerima informasi secara pasif. Ia dengan sengaja menangkapnya. Otak berkembang pesat pada umpan balik. Dan pembelajaran bergantung pada umpan balik yang efektif dan kaya. Emosi sangat penting untuk membuat pola, dan mereka mengarahkan perhatian, memori, dan pembelajaran kita. Makna lebih penting dari sekedar informasi. Otak bersifat sosial, berkembang dalam kondisi terbaiknya melalui kontrak dengan otak lain. Emosi positif memainkan peran penting dalam pembelajaran yang efektif. Next, ada metacognition. Metacognition has come to the fore in identifying how to improve students' learning. Metacognition means that students understand their own learning, how they learn best, how they learn less effectively. Example, process of self-evaluation of their learning strategies and success. Deep learning promotes metacognition, also higher order thinking and collaborative learning. Metacognition have been deliberately developed through a variety of means. Requires students to reflect on their own learning, work through problems visually, graphically, conduct debriefings, use cooperative learning and feedback from and to students, introduce and build on cognitive conflict. Example, a puzzling experience which contradict others, and constructive disagreement. Have students consider examining aims, goals, and objectives, examining all sides of an issue, argument, the plus minus and interesting points in a situation, the consequence of a sequence to a situation. Next are the learning styles. There are several ways in which learning styles and strategies have been discussed. A well-known example derives from the work of Kolb. Divergers, convergers, assimilators, accommodators. Number 1 is divergers. Divergers who need to be personally involved in the task, who perceive information in concert terms and who reflect on it. Convergers who prefer detailed steps in learning, who receive information abstractly and who reflect on it. Assimilators who thrive on problem-solving activities and who perceive and process information abstractly and effectively respectively. Number 4, accommodators who enjoy talking rich, who thrive on flexibility in learning activities, and who process information actively. Kolb argues that learning follows a cyclical process of concert experience, doing, leading to reflective observation, reflecting on the experience, leading to abstract conceptualization, making sense on the experience, and effective experimentation, planning what to do, and then moving back to regret the cycle. The learner can enter the cycle at any point within this cyclical process. There are 4 styles of learner. Number 1 are the reflector, number 2 the theorist, number 3 the pragmatist, and number 4 the activist. Number 1, the reflector. A reflector who seeks alternative to create options, who is prepared to wait and watch others until the time is ripe for action, and who tries to retain a sense of perspective. The theorist who tries to gather all the facts and who well organize, reviewing alternative and calculating probabilities, working well independently and learning from his on her own past experiences. Number 3, the pragmatist, who is keen to try out new ideas, technique, and theories, who evaluates option and good at finding out information, who sets goals and takes positive action to meet them, working well independently. And number 4, the activists who prepare to take risks, to become involved with others and to gain new ideas and insights from them, who is active and relies on personal good feelings to drive his or her actions. The effective student's teacher is one who tries to ascertain the student's learning style and is able to work with them. At issue here is not much to the description that one places upon a learning style, but what one does when faced with a class of students whose learning styles and preferences and varied within a single class. Clearly, this called for a variety of learning and teaching strategies to be adopted. Motivation, there are several different views of motivation. They do not necessarily conflict with each other, but rather complement each other because very often they focus on different things. Number 1, behaviorism. Number 2, expectancy theory. Number 3, needs theories. Number 4, self-perceptions and self-worth. Number 5, learned helplessness. Number 6, social theories. Okay, first, behaviorism. Behaviorism, sometimes known as a stimulus response theory. There are several characteristics. Number 1, a particular stimulus provokes a particular response. Behavior that is positively reinforced is learned. Repetition and rote lead to learning. Learning is largely for extrinsic purpose. Negative reinforcement leads to forgetting. Lack of repetition leads to extinction. Learning is conditioned behavior. Learning is evidence in observable behavior. Learning can be programmed. Next, ada expectancy theory. In this sense, it involves some intrinsic motivation as well as some intrinsic motivation. If we are using expectancy theory and motivating students, then we have to work on their expectancies and the values that they attribute to the learning to make the learning clearly worthwhile in the learner's eyes. In expectancy theory, motivation for learning is a function of the expectancies and likelihood of success by the learner and the value that the learner attribute to the goals and outcomes of the learning. The needs theories, learning motivation is intrinsic and cognitive, affective and physical needs are all interlinked in this theory. Learning is a humanistic activity engaging all aspects of the person's makeup, and learners have needs which must be met hierarchically. Selanjutnya ada self-perceptions and self-worth. If motivation is not be successful, then it must draw to the whole person and develop his/her self-esteem and self-worth. Learning motivation must be intrinsic, not just extrinsic. Theories of motivation which emphasize and self-perceptions and self-worth suggest that learning is effective, its self-esteem and self-worth are high and deserve that, conversely, low self-esteem and self-worth are major barriers to effective motivation and learning. Next ada learner helplessness. Learner helplessness as a motivational problem can result from student and teacher being trained to be locked into a prescribed system views as beyond their control. Learned helplessness children are extrinsically motivated and not so much intrinsically motivated because of their failures. Children suffering from learned helplessness eventually give up. Next ada social theories. Social theories of learning emphasize the social learning environment. People are powerful teachers of each other and learners from each other. And recalling the discussion of previous education, learning collaboratively is one of the most powerful ways of guaranteeing effective learning. Group and collaborative work, for example, is not an arbitrary learning strategy, perhaps used for the sake of variety, rather it is a necessary learning strategy. So the message is simple. Use collaborative and interactive learning if you want to develop learning and higher order thinking. Next ada cooperative learning. In this respect, the importance of cooperative learning must be stressed, with students working together in small groups to accomplish their goals. Some benefits of cooperative learning. Interracial school friendship were shown to develop in heterogeneously structured groups. These friendships were generally reciprocated and minority group academic performance correspondingly improved. Number 2, cooperative learning helped to overcome interactional barriers in groups including mixed ability and physical handicapped children. Number 3, children's self-esteem was enhanced in a majority of studies. Number 4, children generally increase their within classroom friendship within corresponding increase in their feelings of altruism and social perspective talking. Okay, next ada key characteristic of effective teaching. A major study of teacher effective in 2000 found 3 main factors associated within teacher control that exert a significant influence on students' learning, making up to a 30% difference in their progress. Number 1, teaching skills. Number 2, professional characteristic. And number 3, classroom climate. Teaching skills were divided into 7 major areas contributing to the time on task and lesson flow. Number 1, high expectation. Number 2, planning. Number 3, methods and strategies. Number 4, pupil management discipline. Number 5, time and resource management. Number 6, assessment. And number 7, homework. Many factors that contribute to effective teacher-student relationship, example, the personality of students, are clearly beyond the control of the teacher and have therefore to be taken as given when interaction occur. Nonetheless, effective relationships do not just happen. Teachers must plan for particular relationship and not leave their occurrence to the hidden curriculum of everyday life in the classroom. One factor in this respect that does lie within the student's teacher power to manipulate is what Anderson term nonverbal immediately behaviors. Modeling. The learner only needs to see a particular behavior demonstrated by another person before imitating it himself. Sometimes consciously, sometimes not. The person who demonstrates the behavior is called the model, and the form of learning, modeling, can be most useful device for the student's teacher. In this connection, if students detect this discrepancies between what the student's teacher says and what she actually does, they will ignore what she says and be affected much more by what she does. And next, students' teacher attitudes and experience, expectation, and the influence that exert on classroom behavior. The attitudes and expectation a student teacher holds with respect to the students she teaches considerably affect her behavior towards them, and this in turn influences their response in a variety of ways. Studies conducted in the United States, for instance, indicated that students of differing achievement levels were treated differently by their teachers, that there were important differences in both the frequency and quality of the contact between them. The organization of learning. There are many ways of organizing students. Example, the teaching them as a complete class or dividing the class into a number of groups. There are a number of forms of interaction between teacher and pupils and among pupils themselves, which may be found in school learning situations. The particular one operating at any given moment will depend upon the objective of the lesson, the nature of the task in hand, and the implicit educational philosophy. 6 characteristics of learning situations that explain the main patterns of interactions, both formal and informal, that can found in a school context. Situation 1. The teacher-centered lesson. Situation 2. Lecture discussion. Situation 3. Effective learning. Situation 4. Effective learning, independent planning. Situation 5. Group text centered. And situation 6. Independent working, not interactional. Not interaction. Alright, that's all I can say. I'm sorry if I have a lot of mistakes. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.